Hello and welcome to Litigating AI, a series of conversations with the people who are working with AI to improve access to justice. In this episode, we're going to reveal how Garfield created a piece of global legal history, becoming the first regulated AI product to successfully pursue a case all the way through the courts. Garfield founder and CEO Philip Young will be talking to Tammy Taquidir, the founder of premium hospitality recruitment agency Maximus Elite, who used Garfield every step of the way in her battle to reclaim money she was owed by a client.
So let's start with an obvious first question. Tammy, you're the star of the show. Tell us about your background, a bit about your life history and how you've got to doing what you do.
So my name is Tamires Taquidir, although most people do call me Tammy. Just for brief context, I was born in Mozambique, that's sort of southeastern Africa. Spent part of my life in Portugal. I'd say that's been sort of 10 years. And then as soon as I turned 18, I moved to London. I was like, it's my time to be independent. Let me find a job and let me see what is this adult thing about. So I sort of moved to London, pursuing university. That was business and hospitality management. But I've spent my career sort of in hospitality and working my way up from my first job being McDonald's, all the way to sort of Michelin-starred restaurants and luxury members club. Today, I do run my own hospitality recruitment and HR consultancy, and that's Maximus Elite.
I mean, that's a really interesting life story. So out of interest, what took you to Portugal? Was that a family move or some other connection? I mean, that's quite a big move.
It was a family move. I was 9 at the time, so it's not like I sort of had a say in it, so whether I should go or stay. I mean, mind you, I would have loved to stay, but ultimately as well, it's just to see how, it gave me the opportunity to come to London and to start a career exactly in what I wanted. So, probably 9-year-old, I wouldn't make the best decision for myself, but I'm glad that my mom did. And so we moved.
The next obvious question is the problem you faced. So I think it's fair of me to describe you as a freelancer because you've got your own business. And as I understand it, this was a debt claim and sort of for money you were owed?
Yeah, freelancer would be a good way to describe, yes. And I've became involved in a dispute over unpaid fees for work that I've completed. This is the kind of thing that until you're in it, you don't understand it is like that or how it runs, And I think like many small business owners, I've never expected to find myself in litigation, I'd always rather solve things through conversations. I've eventually found myself in a position where a substantial amount of money I've earned wasn't simply being paid. And how could I then navigate through that?
Yes, and I guess that's the first challenge really, which is to sort of find a solution. And sometimes that means finding something or someone that can help you get to that solution. And did you consider traditional law firms or something else?
Yes, I did. Throughout this sort of work and claim, I do have a very close friend, one of my best friends, actually. She's been studying law for the last 10 years. That's when we met. She was actually at the time doing masters at University of Westminster. And we always sort of very close. So she kind of knew what I was going through in terms of unpaid and so on. And I went to her. She was the first person I went to her. I said, look, this is the situation. What are the fees for a law firm and how does that work? She was like, look, I tell you, it's not cheap. There's some hourly packages in terms of advice and so on. She's like, I don't want to discourage you, but it's just not as easy to sort of pursue as you think it is. But on that same message, so this was through a voice message actually, 1 minute later, she tells me, oh no, by the way, there's Garfield law. Have you heard about it? I'm like, no. So this is a new AI platform that they can actually, since this is a small claims issue, they might be able to help you because they can act as a solicitor on your behalf and with very minimal fees, in fact. So, reach out to them, find out how it works. They might be able to help you. So it was in a very informal sort of way of asking for help. And that's how I've landed on Garfield. And to be honest with you, the biggest challenge wasn't necessarily understanding that I was owed money, because, it was agreed that I worked and that the work was delivered. The challenge for me was understanding the legal process of everything. Most small business owners aren't lawyers. As much as I do have my sort of experience in HR, that's still not a law. And in terms of law of employment is very different. But we don't know where to start, what forms are needed, what the rules are, or deadlines for that matter, and even whether pursuing a claim is even realistic. And yeah, that's how I came across Garfield.
Oh, wow. I actually didn't know that. We do try to track how people find us, but of course, people don't always tell us. And it's always a bit of a mystery to us as to what works and what doesn't. And it's very nice to hear that you were given Garfield's name by essentially another lawyer as something to try.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, if you hadn't found Garfield, would you have had quite a difficult decision? Would you have had to have decided between trying to do the process through the courts yourself, or pay a lot of money to a traditional law firm, or maybe even give up and just say, actually, the time and cost isn't worth it? Is that where you would have been, do you think?
Probably. It was a big sum that it was owed to me to just sort of walk away from. But I would have had to ponder, or perhaps put it for another time to sort of pursue that. I had no idea in terms of what the solicitor fees are. I knew it was something quite substantial, because otherwise there would have been claims on forward and onward. But, I never really knew even anyone that sort of chased up a claim or reach out to a solicitor to talk about anything, because it's just so much time invested and the money invested in just finding out whether it's worth going through it, that I was like, okay, if Gabriel wasn't in a way, I would have to ponder. Probably wouldn't pursue it straight away. Probably would have, okay, maybe let me make some more money, put it aside, and then I'll find a way to recover this much later. So, but yeah, Garfield made the process feel extremely accessible. And instead of staring at the blank screen, wondering what to do next, I sort of had the guidance at every stage, and it broke a very intimidating process into something manageable.
Yeah, it's lovely to hear, because, of course, that's our sort of animating force, the reason that we've been building this thing, to try and make a process that otherwise would look quite daunting and scary actually something that people feel with some confidence that they can navigate.
What surprised me the most, I wouldn't say was the technology behind it. I mean, it is great that in terms of this existing for small claims and for, business owners, it's something really great. But for me personally, I think it was the confidence that it gave me. Because when you're chasing unpaid money, especially from someone you trusted, it's easy to second guess yourself. Is it right? Is it wrong? Should I not? But I started wondering whether I was being unreasonable or whether I should just walk away. And using sort of this platform, it sort of gave me confidence, because again, my friends and people close to me, they were a bit biased in terms of, yeah, you should go to court, you should pursue and everything. But ultimately, it's me.
They were egging you on.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's great to get the support, but, I'm the one who has to then face the charge, the cost, the time, right? So, yes, it is great that something like this that exists. And to be honest with you, how I do also see that the AI and the tools that are here, they're not here to take over us. It's more of how to use it to empower us. I mean, again, I wouldn't know how it is for solicitors now getting through this sort of platform, how they feel, whether they feel threatened or not. But knowing I also got the advice to pursue this claim through a lawyer as well, it was mixed feeling sort of things. But she's like, you're my friend. I don't want to see you getting charged for things that maybe through Garfield you can do it. So it was more onto that.
Trying something for the first time is always a little bit, scary might be too strong a word, but it's, it takes bravery. And, you tried Garfield, you were, amongst the first cohort of people to come onto the platform and use it. And I was wondering, what gave you confidence in it? Was it because your friend recommended it, or was it because our regulator has regulated us, or some combination of those things, or just using it, you felt instinctively that it was doing the right things at the right time?
Yes, the recommendation, again, coming from someone with a low background. I mean, I knew that she knew what she was talking about in a way. So, and it's also someone I trust blindly. So I know she wouldn't sort of set me to fail or anything. But it turned something emotional to something practical. Let's put it that way. Yeah. And that's how I see it, at least. I was obviously curious how AI could actually help with legal matters. But as I said, very quickly, I realized you were making something much complicated easier to understand.
That's probably actually sort of a very good way of saying what anyone building a AI product should aim to do. If they can sort of meet that challenge, which is to make something complicated easy to understand, they're probably building the product in the right way, thinking about the right architecture and the right user experience. Let's talk a bit about the case itself. So just for the listeners, I'll just quickly explain that what Garfield did was essentially all of the stages of the case that a human solicitor would do. So it helped Tammy prepare the pre-action correspondence to deal with responses from the other side, drafted the court proceedings, dealt with what are known as the statements of case, so the court documents that explain what the case and the defence and the counterclaim are about. And then it dealt with allocation, document production and the drafting of witness statements, and obviously analysing the other side's witness statements. And then because the other side didn't pay or settle the case, Tammy fought to trial, and then it handed off the case to a barrister called Dominic, who went to the trial with Tammy and did all the argument and dealt with the cross-examination of the other side. And so that was the sort of the shape of it. Now, you were faced in this case with a counterclaim where the other side responded to your case by trying to ask you to pay money to them. And I was wondering, how did you feel about that? Did you think that that was an attempt to persuade you to settle or to drop the case, or what was your sort of
100%, 100%. Because it had zero foundation in terms of, what he was claiming back, and especially being something that he had already paid before all this dispute even started. Yeah, there was a little bit of a kind of not taking me serious sort of thing. Because again, I think as a business owner, there's a lot of people that don't pay. And also sometimes you also have people collecting money from you. And I think he was sort of in that way, she will give up, or, it's nothing.
Well, they probably were working on the basis that you would find it overwhelming, because that's one tactic defendants always take, to try to persuade the claimant not to pursue the claim. And hopefully they took it more seriously when you commenced proceedings, because that's a very serious step, and certainly when you went to the trial. This was an unusual small claim, because normally small claim trials, they last about an hour. It's unusual for the parties to be represented by lawyers. Parties often can do this themselves. That's the way the system's set up, at least. And then the judge gives a judgment there and then. But your case was a much bigger, unusual and tougher small claim, because it was 3 hours. So it's a very long trial by small claim standards. And both sides had barristers representing them, and the other side had a solicitor representing them throughout. And there were something like 7 witnesses, weren't there? Although only 2 of you gave evidence at the end. And then the judge had to reserve the judgment and hand it down at a later date, because she had to go away and write it all up and think about it. So did you feel as you went along that there was a lot of work that you would have had to have done, though Garfield did a lot of it for you? Were you surprised by that?
Definitely. As I said, the platform helped me as well, organizing all my evidence. I do remember things that we sort of discussed. I had to kind of get into understanding that I'm like, okay, one, I'm not being unreasonable. This was the agreement. I've been paid accordingly until a certain point, and now I'm not getting paid. So I need to follow this, and I need to go through. So finding the guidance even to collect the evidence, it's probably something that I wouldn't pursue or collect if, as I said, if it wasn't guided through me in that way, and kind of giving me the confidence to ultimately stand up for myself in a way. It's like, okay, I have the right tools to not bring him down, but to sort of make my point.
To vindicate your rights.
Clear. Yes. To make my point clear. I mean, I'm not imagining things. This has happened. I have the evidence. Garfield just allowed it to make it something that, as I said, complicated, much easier to understand and to navigate through that process. And just back onto the question when you said whether I would have done it without Garfield, as I said, Garfield lowered that barrier of taking action, because that's ultimately where we were. And mind you, again, my friend did mention to me, like, look, the cost of having a barrister, they're not that cheap as well. And she said, you have all the evidence, you know the case, you know him, you know how it works, and you can definitely be there and represent yourself. But don't forget, and I was like, well, but the other party will have a solicitor. So I don't want to feel like I am less or more in terms of having someone to represent. So I'm like, okay, I'll close my eyes, because this is probably the only significant cost that I had to incur without having a return on. But it was, a rather good investment.
Yeah, well, I mean, the barrister obviously does cost a bit of money if you use a barrister, but I think you were wise to instruct Dominic, because otherwise it's extra stress. Because it was a long trial, because it was 3 hours, having to do it all yourself. It's nice to be able to sort of know that you're in safe hands and then just be the witness.
Very safe hands, actually. Dominic was great. He also gave me the confidence I needed, through few minutes of talking. I'm like, okay, mate, I'm not crazy, and my story does sound right.
How did you find the handoff between Garfield and Dominic? Because obviously AI can't go into court yet and do the argument itself. So if you want to not argue the case yourself, you have to have a barrister or solicitor go in. You obviously sort of saw it. Did you find it convenient and helpful? Was there anything that you would have preferred to be done differently?
No, it was all, conveniently helpful. Again, being my first experience, it's hard to sort of compare to anything. And I also don't know people that have gone through court through small claims and so on. But, having met Dominic on the day, and mind you that before we've also exchanged some emails, and I was always saying, well, if you rather jump on a call so I can guide you through and everything. He's like, no, fine. That's, that's helpful and everything. So I was like, okay, why he does not want to talk to me? But then I met him and truly he studied the whole case. He understood my evidence. He understood my, my point of view. He was extremely prepared. I think the evidence bundle as well that you sort of helped me build gave him as well enough arguments and also confidence to pursue this one.
Creating bundles is something that if you're not a lawyer, you regard as an administrative task. But when you're a lawyer, you realize it's really, really important. Because if you get that wrong, then everything else starts to fall apart. And usually the judge becomes really angry with you. So it's really important to get the bundles right. So in terms of the trial, do you want to just summarize your sort of impressions of it? Because you've never been in a trial before and hopefully never have to again. What was the experience like for you? And what are your sort of abiding memories?
Unfortunately, it wasn't a straightforward debt and settled immediately. But throughout the time, and fortunately, got to meet you, got to meet Dominic, got to enjoy some sleepless nights, but got to enjoy the process of doing this. But, the claim was defended. There was a hearing, the evidence to be considered. And ultimately, it worked really well. So I can say I kind of experienced almost the full journey of the whole experience. I mean, being in court, as I said, Garfield gave me the confidence to pursue, and ultimately the barrister gave me the confidence to, because it's your story and you go in there for a reason. So when you are telling the truth, there is no 3 different truths. There's only one truth. And that's where you stand on. So I wasn't worried as to, am I going to sound like I'm making this up or not? It genuinely happened the way how it happened. And, there was only one version of the story itself, the only version, at least for me, maybe not for the defendant. But, it just made me think that, and mind you, that through the time that we were even exchanging the evidences, that was in March, and then the hearing was in May, I genuinely thought that after the defendant receiving all the evidence and going through, that he will actually come to his senses and say, "Do you know what? I don't think we need to go to court. Let's find a way to settle this." So I was so shocked to even see him there in a way. I was ready to be there, but I was so shocked to see. I was like, I can't believe this guy's here. And even some of my friends as well, like, after all this evidence, he really had the guts to show his face to court. What is he going to defend about? Going into a courtroom, and she was, the judge was super friendly, very open. And the fact that, after my sort of cross-examination, she had 0 questions for me. But when was the defendant answering the question, she was a bit confused in terms of the evidence he even handed, and some of the answers, like, you're not making sense in what you're saying. And that's exactly how I felt at the beginning of all this claim. I'm like, I'm not sure what you're talking about. I'm just asking you to pay me what you actually said you would pay me. And, and that's the reason why we are here in court a year later. So, it just sort of makes you think, okay, you're not crazy. You did the right thing and you went through with it. So I'm glad I can put it away. Well, almost. But it was really... It was empowering.
Would you like to say what the result was? Did you win your claim? Did you lose a counterclaim or win the counterclaim? How did it go?
I won everything. So the counterclaim was dismissed and my claim succeeded on exactly the terms that I had initially sort of chased. So as you said, Philip, we sort of made legal history. Was this case the first one going through to court, correct?
This is, as far as I know, anywhere in the world, this is the first trial that's ever been fought with the help of a regulated AI legal platform. You could call it a regulated AI lawyer because it does the same things as a human lawyer. So yes, I think as far as I know anywhere in the world, and I think I'd know if there was anything else like Garfield authorized and regulated anywhere. So you are the first. And what do you think that means?
I mean, it's not.
You won,
we won. It's not a single sort of win. We both won on this one, and truly, it's I'm relieved more than anything. The money mattered, of course, but it was also some sort of validation. I'd say it confirmed that standing up for yourself and for your work was the right thing to do.
Yes, and that's very important. I mean, you've got to be true to yourself, don't you? And you were entitled to something, and you were entitled to receive it. And how does it feel to you to be part of that journey? And what would you maybe say to other businesses who, like you, have got sort of a similar challenge, and are stuck with a dilemma of, do they write it off? Do they try and do it themselves? Do they look for some sort of legal solution? What sort of thoughts would you offer them?
I mean, I think ultimately is, don't assume that because you're a small business owner, you sort of have to walk away from money you're owed. Too many people end up giving up because the legal system feels a little bit inaccessible. Even before I got through to Garfield, I went through sort of Citizen Advice Bureau, but it was just a bit of a hassle to sort of get the right information. It didn't make sense to me. So I think because too many people end up giving up because it just really feels inaccessible. So I think my experience showed me that with the right tools and support, ordinary business owners can pursue a legitimate claims and be heard.
Yeah, and that is, I think, essentially the one of the great implications of the AI revolution we're going through. It's not just a gimmick. It's a technology that, with the right architecture and the right people building the right sorts of products, people are going to end up with a lot of things that will help them in not just their daily life, but also their business life. And hopefully, do things like unlock more justice to people and make some people's jobs easier, and generally maybe also make life a bit easier. So yes, well, Tammy, it's been awesome to have spoken to you at long last, because this is the first time we've ever spoken, even though I do feel I might know you a little bit.
Yeah, because it's been more than 6 months at least, because I first sort of logged in onto Garfield, I think was July. So almost a year ago now. Yeah, not knowing what to expect. And obviously, looking back, it was, as I said, some sleepless nights in terms of, am I doing the right thing? But yeah, here we are. And knowing that we've made history, and this should definitely empower other business owners or sole traders, or, anyone who's sort of pursuing, even if it's £300. I mean, it's your money and it's your time invested into that work. So, why not get it? We can't get time back, but at least you get compensated for it. And, that's why we also work. That's why we do what we do. We can't feed ourselves with thin air. So it just has to be right.
And so the final question, sort of the obvious final question is, well, what does the future hold for you, Tammy? What things are you going to be doing? And do tell everyone the website address for your business so they can check it out.
Yeah, so just sort of, again, a bit of context. Maximus Elite is sort of a hospitality recruitment agency. So for those who'd like to find out, my website is maximuselite.com. In terms of the future, I mean, I'm hoping that I would have the chance and the opportunity to really be part of some recruitment projects, that being new restaurant openings, some of the chef recruitments. I do really enjoy during the opening phase, because you get to sort of build a team from scratch and meet everyone and understanding, everyone's sort of job description and contributed to the actual role. So openings are really, really fun, and it's a 2-3 month sort of project. Hoping as well that the HR side of the business also picks up. There are some changes in employment laws at the moment. So staff handbook sort of contracts will be something that will give me some work, but ultimately help my clients and future clients. But yeah, that's how I'm hoping the business would sort of go through the next 6 months.
Awesome. Well, we wish you all the very, very best. I'm sure it's going to go absolutely brilliantly. And thank you very much for joining me today and being our guest. And thank you also for being an absolutely wonderful user of Garfield.
Thank you very much, Philip. I really appreciate the support.